Alright guys, so let's talk about Argentina today. There are big reasons why Milei wants to dollarize the economy. The country is plagued with a collapsing currency. The Argentine peso is inflating away daily, causing a ton of problems. More people are falling to poverty. The country gets destabilized and it's impossible to attract investors in. So using US dollars is a stopgap measure that restores financial stability in day-to-day life. Ever since Milei took office, inflation has been trending up. Monthly inflation is in the double digits, reaching over 25% in December. Annual inflation is nearly 300%, making it 100 times higher than the US. At 300%, a loaf of bread that costs $5 today will rocket in price a year later. You have to pay $20 for the exact same loaf of bread. And as we all know, your salary rarely keeps up with inflation. In Argentina, wages are up only 180%, which means people still suffer a collapse in buying power. Even if you're lucky enough to get higher wages, prices still double for you 12 months later. This also limits economic growth. As a business owner, you can't keep up with inflation either. Your customer is broke and raising prices is quite impossible. The longer this drags on, your company will shut down. So the urgency for Milei is overwhelming. The peso is effectively trashed and dollarizing the economy is essential, at least in the short term. But the plan is facing big headwinds. Milei has admitted that he's facing delays. Dollarization is unlikely before the midterm elections in late 2025. That's 18 months away. He still wants to abolish the central bank and embrace the US dollar as the national currency. But to dollarize his economy, Milei realizes that he can't do it alone. To accomplish this goal, he needs the help of China. Over the past few months, we have seen Argentina make deliberate moves to break away from Beijing. Milei sees the future of Argentina with the G7, especially the United States. Their foreign minister declared Argentina won't join BRICS, disappointing both China and Russia. Milei also vowed he would curb ties with China, saying, "Will you trade with an assassin?" So it's obvious given the chance Milei doesn't want to work with China on anything. However, the reality on the ground is quite different. We are witnessing one of the biggest U-turns in history. To save the Argentine economy, Milei is now a pragmatist. The fate of Argentina depends on good relations with China. To dollarize his economy, Milei has to maintain or even grow trade relations further. In a stunning reversal, Milei proclaimed trading with China isn't aligning with communists. During the interview, he didn't object to Argentine companies dealing with China. He even defended the currency swap line with the People's Bank of China, the central bank. Now, this is a very interesting development. It seems Beijing's olive branch is still available, and we'll cover why this is important for Argentina's survival. But let's circle back to Milei's agenda. To dollarize your country, it's obvious what is needed: a whole bunch of US dollars circulating in your economy. You need people on the street transacting in dollars, companies paying salaries in dollars, and the government issuing sovereign debt in dollars. To accomplish that, you need a big surplus of the reserve currency first. Seems ultra obvious. To dollarize your economy, you need a constant stream of dollars coming in. More currency units coming in than units leaving the country. To accomplish this, Argentina has two options. Let's touch on the first one, which is building a big trade surplus. Over the past 12 months, Argentina has been suffering from a negative balance of trade. That means Milei has been exporting less to the world than what is being imported into Argentina. It's only recently that the trade surplus is building, hitting $1.4 billion in February this year. But if we dig into the details, it's not because exports are exploding up. Exports increased by 5%, but imports dropped by almost 19%. So Argentina is buying less from the world because Milei is cutting back on spending. He needs to increase the sale of goods to the world to bring more dollars into the country. There's only so much imports you can cut away. Exports need to grow, but it won't be easy. Argentina's biggest export, soybean meal, is losing market share. Because of America's green energy push, soybeans are being crushed for renewable diesel. This is creating an excess in soybean meal, causing Argentina to lose a ton of market share. In just 2 years, Argentina lost more than 10% of the market, and this alone accounts for 12% of their total exports. Their neighbor Brazil is the world's largest soybean producer as well, and they are competing hard, stealing more customers away. Soy harvests have stalled in Argentina compared to Brazil. Harvests in the country have gone nowhere. This year alone, Brazil is expected to harvest 160 tons of soybeans. Argentina, on the other hand, will reap only 50 million tons, 3 times less. You can see why this is a big crisis for their balance of trade. Their biggest export is stagnating. So why is this happening? Shouldn't Argentina encourage farmers to grow more soy? Well, this all circles back to the need for more US dollars. The government has taken away the incentives to harvest more crops for exports. Argentina charges a 33% tax on soy exports. It's a major source of tax revenue and US dollars for the government. But the pain doesn't even stop there. Exporters must also exchange the dollars earned at the official rate. Not only are you taxed upfront when you export, there's a currency tax at the end of the day as well. If I sell $100 worth of exports, after all the punishments, I might only get $50 at the end. My earnings are cut in half. The only way to survive is to sell my soybeans at a higher price to the market, but not many buyers out there in the world will be happy to pay. So you can see the doom loop Argentine farmers are facing. But if Milei doesn't do this, then the government won't build up their reserve of US dollars. It's the classic chicken and the egg problem. The only way to break out of this cycle is to reduce the outflow of dollars, and this is where China comes in. There's a reason why Argentina has a big trade deficit with China. It reached $9.2 billion in 2023. Argentina sells $5.2 billion to Beijing and imports over $14 billion worth of Chinese goods. Looking at this, it's easy to say that China is taking advantage of Argentina, but realize that this is free trade. The reason why Argentina buys so much from China is because it makes economic sense. China has access to cheap energy and a robust supply chain. This allows them to flood the world with cheap stuff. They're exporting deflation. Now, this includes the raw materials like electronics, machinery, and chemicals, imports that fuel the Argentine economy. If China cuts trade with Argentina for whatever reason, this will increase the cost of Malay's imports. You have to source it from elsewhere, increasing the outflows of US dollars. The next part is hilarious as well. To dollarize Argentina, Milei needs the help of the Chinese yuan. You might be thinking, how is this possible? How can this be? It's quite simple and let's go through it. Argentina imports the most goods from China. Beijing accounts for 21.5% of total imports. That's around $14 billion worth of goods. During his interview, Milei specifically said that the trade arrangements with China are unchanged. This means Milei still has access to China's yuan swap line. A yuan swap line is simple to understand. Argentina exchanges pesos for the Chinese yuan. Milei can then use the yuan to import stuff from Beijing. This helps his government save a ton of dollar reserves. According to the arrangement, Milei can access up to $18 billion worth of yuan to pay for foreign imports. He can save a mountain of dollars importing goods from China. After all, Beijing will accept their own currency as payment. This arrangement is a win-win for both economies. China creates demand for the yuan while Argentina can hold on to their hard-earned dollars. The Chinese currency, ironically, is helping Milei dollarize Argentina. We mustn't forget that Milei is an economist. He's more qualified than most people. And if you and I, we know the importance of the swap line, I'm sure he understands this 10 times better. And that's why he's backtracking on his China comments. That's why his foreign minister is shaking the hands of Wang Yi and smiling year to year. Trade relations with China is necessary. To ensure the stability of his economy, he needs the help of Beijing. It's important to understand the size of the swap line. In total, China has extended a total of $20 billion worth of yuan to Argentina. It's bigger than Pakistan, Mongolia, Egypt, and Turkey combined by a big margin. In fact, the previous president used the swap line to pay down their debt to the IMF. They paid in the Chinese yuan because there was a dollar shortage. That's how deep this goes. Sure, China benefits greatly from this arrangement. They are financing Argentina to buy their exports, no one's denying that. But Argentina gets to solve their most pressing problem, which is buying critical imports without making the inflation crisis even worse. Besides exports, there's another way to dollarize Argentina. Milei can borrow money from investors to flood the government coffers with dollars. By issuing bonds, Argentina can raise more money today and only repay the loan years later. This sounds easy, but Argentina is facing a debt crisis. Thanks to years of default, when Argentina issues dollar-denominated bonds, they have to pay a crazy interest rate to investors. Their dollar bonds due in 2027 are yielding 9.75%, almost double digits. That's obviously a big rate of return, double the yield of US bonds. Investors want a bigger incentive to lend Argentina dollars because the risk of default is that much higher. Borrowing money might solve Malay's liquidity crisis today, but it kind of creates a bigger problem tomorrow. Eventually, the debt has to be repaid. And if he decides to default again, it will force bond yields to climb up even higher. Argentina already has a debt bomb of $400 billion. Just to the IMF alone, Argentina owes 43 billion and they have difficulty paying. They need the yuan to settle the payments. They just don't have enough dollars. So to stabilize his bond market, Milei needs to boost investor confidence. And what does this mean? This means showing investors that Argentina can earn the money to settle their debt obligations. He can't afford to decouple with China, not next year, not in the next 10 years. In the meantime, investment from China spends all of Argentina. They invest heavily in the country to develop natural resources and energy. Just in Santa Cruz, South Argentina, Chinese money financed the building of two hydroelectric dams. They pumped nearly $4 billion into the project. It will help supply the area with power and provide employment. Trade relations with Beijing is extremely important. If Milei pulls away completely, it doesn't make sense for China to continue investing in the country. This is one scenario that Argentina simply can't afford. They will have to raise the missing money from the open market, and this will mean higher bond yields and an even bigger debt burden. In the banking sector alone, China has an enormous footprint that not many people realize. ICBC, which is the world's largest bank, has stayed in Argentina since 2011. Not many of us have heard of this brand before, but just based on total assets, this Chinese bank is even bigger than JP Morgan. During this period, they gathered 1 million retail accounts across the entire country. ICBC is a state-owned bank, so it can funnel China's big dollar surplus back into Argentina. Destroying relations with China will likely force the bank to exit the country. This will only worsen Malay's financial crisis. Now let's think from the US perspective. If the US wants to displace China from Argentina, there's a very simple solution to do it. Just get the Federal Reserve to give Milei an unlimited swap line of dollars. Give Argentina the ability to swap all their pesos for dollars to stabilize their economy. This is one avenue to dollarize everything, but the US isn't doing so. Why is that? Because they know Argentina is a big flight risk. If they swap pesos endlessly for US dollars, it will debase the reserve currency as well. As a consequence, it will drive up inflation back in the US. So it's a risky move even for the US. Letting go of China is impossible for Argentina. They are willing to take the risk that even the US is not. And if you think about it, it's really ironic. To break away from China, Milei will need the help from China. It sounds so crazy, but it's true. Now, I want to end this with Milei's own words about relations with China, especially the swap line. He won't modify it or get rid of it because it will doom Argentina's economy. They are commercial agreements between private parties. We have one part in our central bank. They have their own counterpart in their central bank. Therefore, that's not a problem. Now, this doesn't make much sense, but it does show Milei is reluctant to dump this currency lifeline. Milei might be able to dollarize his economy one day, but it won't happen without help from Beijing. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Can Milei dollarize Argentina? Is it even possible? Is breaking away from China even feasible? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.